Talofa, Bulabinakamala, Kia ora, Yorana, aloha, and welcome. My name is Donato Fatuesi, and I'm your host for Kurry Talks. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that we are recording today on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish and Duwamish tribe. Join us in the movement to support paying real rent today by visiting realrentduwamish.org. Welcome to Kurry Talks. If this is your first time here, do us a favor and drop a comment below. Let us know that this is your first time here, and everyone else will join me in welcoming you into this space. Kurry Talks was created to bring the medicinal healing properties of the turmeric root and using that to bring about stories of folks and their experiences throughout COVID to heal us all. So welcome. If you've seen Kurry Talks before, go ahead and drop a like into the like button area or whatever, wherever you're tuning in from. But I'm so excited to bring about our newest guest this month. The community knows her as Jayda Leiataua, and she is a larger than life person that has been in community from running into pageants in Samoa to living here in Washington State with us. And I'm so happy to welcome her as a ongoing community supporter and volunteer of Utopia Washington's work. Welcome, Jayda.
Hello, hi Donato.
It's so wonderful to have you. Thank you for being our guest on Kurry Talks.
Thank you for having me, it's an honor.
So, Jayda, let's open up the conversation with your first encounter with the pandemic starting and everything going into lockdown. Can you take us back to that journey of your personal experience and what you've gone through?
Of course. So this was back in 2020. I would say about March. That's when I first encountered and heard about the pandemic. During that time, it was a confusing time because, you know, there was a lot of he say, she say, and, you know, we were hearing a lot of, oh, this is what's Corona is hitting here in Washington. And, you know, so it was kind of confusing for me. And during the time, I was laid off of my job during that time. So that was also a sad moment for me. You know, not being able to provide for my family and myself.
Okay.
So, you know, it was both confusing and a sad moment.
Yeah, definitely a complete shocker to be able to lose your job and your supporting family, you say.
Yes.
Since then, how has your living conditions changed?
Well, as of right now, still to this day, I'm still unemployed. I'm receiving help from the government.
Okay.
You know, I'm receiving unemployment, but even still with the unemployment, it still doesn't help. You know, I mean, it helps, but helps a little. You know,
Yeah.
so you know, as of right now, I would say, you know, I'm struggling. But you know, God has me. You know, He's been there. You know, during the tough times, and you know, He gets me through. So
I really appreciate that, being a God girl and vocal about it.
yes.
There are many folks in our community who are faith-based folks.
Yes.
And are struggling to listen to the scientific evidence that supports that COVID is real and that folks need to get vaccinated.
Yes.
What type of conversations are being had within your faith-based community about getting vaccinated today?
Well, I go to church at Trinity Community Church in Kent. Majority of our congregation has already been vaccinated. Not everybody, but majority. We also have our leaders there. They are still convincing and, you know, putting the word out there for people to get vaccinated.
That's so amazing to hear, Jayda. Trinity Community Church is definitely a church community that Utopia's done work with in the past,
Yes.
and they are phenomenal folks. I'm so glad to hear that they are getting that message across to the rest of the congregation, so that we can get back to some semblance of normalcy.
Yes.
Right? I'm sure we all have missed being in community with each other in person. And we want to definitely work to try to get back to that.
Yes.
Since the pandemic started, have you traveled?
Yes. I've traveled multiple times. I've been in and out of Anchorage and also in and out of California.
Okay. What were the purposes of some of your travel?
In and out of Alaska, I was in and out for a volleyball tournament. And then for California, I was visiting family. And then just this past month, we celebrated my grandfather's 82nd birthday.
Wow. So, since that trip, Jayda, understanding that we've worked to get folks vaccinated throughout the pandemic, and that this pandemic is still very real. You had contracted COVID-19 just about a month ago.
Yes.
Was that correct?
Yes.
Can you share with us your experience?
Yes. So it all started last month, traveling to California. I must have contracted it at the airport, you know, with, you know how everybody's in and out. And, you know, so, you know, just the passing of, you know, high, and I could have contracted it from somebody, you know, that had it or had the symptoms. But prior to arriving to California, that's when I started feeling the symptoms of fever, body aches, and then no shortness of breath during the time, but those were the symptoms I was feeling during the time.
So in the very early stages of those symptoms, did you at all consider this could possibly be COVID yet?
In my mind, I didn't want to think it. I would say I was in denial.
Okay.
I thought it was just a regular fever. So what I did was, we were at a restaurant, and I took a tequila shot to try to kill the symptoms or the sinuses, but that obviously seemed not to help.
So how long did it take, and how bad did your symptoms get until you went to see a doctor?
It was on my way back to Seattle. On the plane, everything just totally got worse.
Wow.
Yeah, that's when I started feeling shortness of breath. My body was just weak. I couldn't, I was coughing up a storm. So I had to request for a wheelchair when I arrived because I couldn't walk. And, you know, that was just the worst feeling ever.
Wow. So did you need wheelchair support from the airport in California checking in, or it wasn't until you arrived that your symptoms dramatically got worse that you needed wheelchair support coming out of the plane?
Yes. It was not until I arrived here in Seattle, that's when I just completely felt helpless.
Wow.
I just automatically requested for a wheelchair service.
You spent some time in the ICU.
Yes.
Which definitely illustrates how serious Jayda's symptoms got. Can you share with us that experience?
Yes, of Of course. Well, being in the ICU is not a good thing. That just shows how critical your condition is.
Mm.
Being in there was scary. It was really tough. You know, sorry if I get a little bit emotional, but it gets to the point where you're just completely helpless. Yes, you have nurses, but it just, they were so understaffed to where, and just shows to how COVID is really, the numbers are really going up because they were so understaffed. They had so many patients that, they were trying their best to tend to other patients. For my case, I just felt so helpless. I wasn't, my normal self. There were a lot of things that I couldn't do, that normal people do, but because of a lot of the medication and the machines that they had on me, and I wasn't able to function and be 100% during that time.
You talked about having difficulty breathing. Did you end up needing a ventilator?
No, they only had me on a sleep app machine for the breathing, and it helps with the lungs as well. So that was the basic. That was the biggest issue, was because I caught pneumonia at the same time.
Wow.
And it was really affecting my lungs. So they had me on a app machine kind.
How long were you in the intensive care unit?
I was in the ICU for a week.
Wow. And what type of mental toll did that take on you?
Just the fear of, of fighting. I mean, I was trying my best to fight, and I would say it was just scary. Yeah.
And still now, hospitals are not allowing for visitors, or is it one visitor per day? Were you able to have visitors during that time?
No, they have zero tolerance for visitors.
Especially for COVID cases.
Especially for COVID cases,
okay.
Yeah.
So I understand you're so close to your siblings, and you have many nieces and nephews that look up to you as auntie.
Yeah.
Were you able to keep in contact with them virtually to help with, coping throughout that experience?
Yes. Thank God for technology and social media. I was able to, FaceTime and video chat with my loved ones. It just helped brighten up my day and just helped me get through this dark time that I was in.
Wow, that's so wonderful to hear, Jayda. You and your sister are also the primary caretakers for your parents as far as supporting them financially.
Yes.
Throughout the pandemic, you've lost your job and you have limited support through the government. What or how has that changed and affected your family that you care for financially?
Thank you for the question. Like I mentioned before, I struggle. I'm struggling and still struggling. So I try my best to put my parents' needs before mine. Every time they call or, for assistance, me and my sister, we try our best to contribute to whatever, their needs are. And it's just, like I mentioned also, it's hard. These times are hard. And I have, I'm a strong woman of faith. And, God is, always there.
I love that so much. So, before we started, we had to discuss whether or not we had been vaccinated so we could determine how we could shoot today's episode of Kurry Talks.
Mm-hmm.
Last month's episode, we were able to film without our face mask because Atasha and I had both been vaccinated already. Can you share with our viewers what your current vaccination status is today?
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as of today, I had my first vaccination shot. So that's a half step away of being fully vaccinated.
Yes.
Yes.
And so we have a very fun and exciting way of helping to promote our vaccination efforts through Utopia. And did you know, Jayda, that we have just launched our TikTok?
Oh, for real?
Yeah, so we are trying to reach more people and more younger people to get the information about COVID out there in a fun and engaging way.
Yes.
We understand that a lot of the younger folks are pushing out resources in this fun way, and we need to reach them. And so I am so excited to share with y'all one of our newest TikToks. So don't go anywhere. Check it out.
Thanks to Utopia Washington, getting the vaccination is as easy as one phone call. Contact them today. Let's stay safe and healthy by passing the mask. Hashtag Utopia United.
Oh my gosh, wasn't that amazing?
Oh my gosh, that was super amazing.
Well, I'm glad you think so, because towards the end of our program, you and I are going to have to make a TikTok for that channel. What do you think?
Well, they better be ready.
Or get ready. So thank you, folks, for coming back. Again, if this is your first time here, please drop a comment below, maybe with the number 1. And like everyone who's been here before, let's send them some love with a like and welcome to our Kurry Talks, the Jayda issue. Now, Jayda, you shared about getting your first dose of the vaccine.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you today?
It means a lot to me because, getting COVID, having to be contracted with COVID, it just tells, getting vaccinated tells the story, you're thinking of your loved ones, and your surroundings, basically.
Yeah. Since then, you have been in the ICU, contracted COVID, and currently you need oxygen support?
Yes.
How often do you need oxygen support now through your experience?
Till now, I'm still on the oxygen support, but I need it throughout the whole day, just so, because my breathing is still not 100%. So the doctor just recommends me to have it on all day. You don't see me with it right now because, it's a plug-in, and I'm not able to travel around with it, so.
Oh, okay. Wow. What are some differences that you are noticing between pre-COVID Jayda and post-COVID Jayda? What are the positives?
Thank you. So pre-COVID, reflecting back to before I contracted COVID, my life was, I was careless about my health. I took a lot of things for granted. You know, and you know, just now, when I went through what I went through, it's just an eye opener. It's a wake up call. I mean, and I encourage everybody, you know, out there listening, to like be careful when you're out there, because you never know. So now, you know, post COVID, I'm living a healthy life now. Continuing on with this diet, you know, eating healthy, living a healthy life. So, you know, that's my message to a lot of folks out there that, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure folks will definitely heed your message, because you've had a lot of insight to share with us, and I've learned so much from your story, Jayda. Even the resiliency that you've had to go through to survive the ICU, and you're here today. I'm so honored.
Thank you.
My last question for you, Jayda. Is there something you want to say to folks that are still skeptical or still deciding or don't want to get vaccinated?
Yes. So, this is just a couple of days ago, I lost a dear friend to COVID. She passed away peacefully, and you know, she was one of the people that were very skeptical about getting vaccinated. And I just want to share with the public to get vaccinated. You know, forget about all the he say, she say, and what you're hearing about the vaccinations. I went through it. I've had the symptoms from vaccination, but it's nothing compared to getting COVID. So my advice to everybody is to get vaccinated. Think of your loved ones, of your surroundings, and you know, and especially yourself and your health.
Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. I did say that was going to be my last question, but I do have one final question, Jayda. In hindsight, through what you've gone through, the traveling, the COVID, losing your job, to where you are today, you've gone through so much. What is something that you can reflect on today throughout that entire experience that you'd like to share with folks?
Thank you. So I've shared with you all my story and, you know, what I went through during the pandemic and everything. Reflecting back, especially during the time that I contracted COVID, you know, like I said, I must have caught it from the airport or whatever. But, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, you know, when I found out that I had these symptoms, I shouldn't have, maybe I shouldn't have traveled. You know, maybe it was selfish of me, you know, to just up and hop on a plane, not thinking of, you know, my surroundings. You know, people on the plane, you know, where I'm sitting next to. I should have been more precautious to, you know, the guidelines and stuff like that.
Wow. It takes a lot to take accountability for our actions and our shortcomings. I think that is truly brave of you to call that out, realize that and recognize that, and really brings your story, I think, to full circle. Because while we can preach the message of getting vaccinated and wear a mask and all of these wonderful things that protect us, oftentimes we can have moments in which we're not fully without guilt in some way or another, right? So I really respect that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jayda. This has been an amazing episode of the Jayda Issue. We promised you we would put together a little TikTok for the children so as to not waste all this eye makeup we spent an hour putting on for you all today. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been an amazing show. Again, this is Kurry Talks. Also, would not have been made possible without the support of King County Public Health. So thank you all, and thank you for tuning in. We do have a follow-up segment called Ask a Doctor, Nurse, Cutie Pie. It changes every week, so we'll see who will be featured on our additional segment following our TikTok. So don't go anywhere. Also, please like, share, subscribe, all the wonderful things. Thank you, Jayda.
Thank
you ready
you.
for that TikTok?
Yes, girl.
Okay, that's a wrap for now.
I don't know if you caught that or not, but our Utopia annual luau will be held in person this year. Wow. So save the date. It is Saturday, August 14th. Saturday, August 14th. We are so excited to be back in person, and we can't wait to see you all at this event. The Luau, Utopia Luau, is an annual event. Last year, we could not have it in person, so we had a virtual one. It's a very big difference. And we now know what a virtual luau and a in-person one means. So this year, we are looking forward for the in-person luau, which is going to be on Saturday, August 14th. More details are coming soon. That was just a preview. Good evening. And Nisam Bulavinaka, Talofa, Malo, Elele, Kiora, Aloha, and Namaste. To all our beautiful earthlings and fabulous people who have tuned into this month's Kurry Talks and Ask a Community Worker. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for all being here and watching this show. You have made this show successful, and we strive to bring you stories that are so relevant to us and to our community. And we hope that you enjoyed Jayda's story, the Jayda edition. And that was such an amazing, actually, story of triumph over COVID-19. And I wanted to especially thank our beautiful sister Jayda for sharing her experience and how she has been navigating life through some very dark days of her life. You know, what she battled and came out of is not an easy experience to think about, and let alone talk or share. Your story is an inspiration to so many, Jayda, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for having the courage to bring it out all and to share with us, everything that you experience. Thank you. We are enriched, and this story has made us, think about our priorities and what we have done and how lightly we have taken things. So, you have come victorious, and we salute you for that. So thank you, Jayda. Now, if you've just tuned in, we want to welcome you to the episode 7 of Kurry Talks and Ask a Community Worker. We have been producing and making Kurry Talks since last November, and this started as a show where we wanted to broadcast stories and capture stories of cutie pies, queer, trans, and from Pacific Islanders, and record how they are navigating life through the pandemic. And the conversations is changing, and it's changing in a really beautiful direction. And if you've just joined it, I would highly recommend you to like, share this episode right here with your family and friends. You never know how these stories may help someone who may be struggling or who may be just needing to hear this. So don't feel shy, and nobody's going to stop you. If you want to share, like, or subscribe, please go ahead and do that. And without further ado, I would like to welcome our wonderful guest, actually. Her name is Becky Reitzes. I may not have said the surname correctly, and I apologize in advance. And she will correct me because it's very beautifully said, but I know she says it so wonderfully. So this evening we have Becky, who is the lead trainer and educator with Public Health, Seattle and King County, and has been with the county since 2001. I have been in meetings with Becky with the King County, and I can tell you from my personal experience, when she speaks, everybody listens. So you better listen today, and if you have any questions, she will be happy to answer those questions for you. She's very experienced, and she has been working around the COVID community mitigation response since the beginning of the pandemic. So she's been through the whole thing, and currently is the program manager for King County's COVID-19 Speakers Bureau. And without further, I would like to bring Becky on our platform here. And thank you so much, Becky, for joining us this evening and giving us your valuable time. We are enriched, and we are truly blessed to have you on our show. It will be wonderful to converse with you and look through some things through your lens and your experiences. So welcome, and thank you for being with us. I think there is no Ask a Community Worker without, this is our signature actually. We have to have a little technical issue, and then only we know Ask a Community Worker or Ask a Doctor or Ask a Nurse is working properly. We have to have a little, that is our signature move actually. We just do it on purpose every month. So Becky, I think there was a technical issue. I would like to welcome you once again. Thank you for joining us, giving us your valuable time this lovely Wednesday evening. Becky, could I request you to please share with our viewers a little about yourself?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Absolutely. I think everybody's.
I can't wait to never ask that question again. Yeah, so thank you. What I said was, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And as I shared, my colleagues are a little jealous that I get to be here with you tonight. You know, it was really wonderful to be also here, to be able to hear Jayda's story. For folks who know, my name is Becky Reitzes. You did great. And I've been with the county since 2001. So when I'm not working on COVID, I'm actually a sexual health educator, and I provide sexual health education to young people. And I'm an author on LGBTQ inclusive curriculum that is used throughout King County and actually nationally. And then I get to work both with young people, but also adults, and train adults to do better around working with us queer and trans community folks, and being inclusive in our schools, in our healthcare, and our agencies. So that's the work I get to do outside of COVID. During COVID, I currently am the program manager for our Speakers Bureau. So I do a lot of education and have been doing education throughout the entire pandemic. And as you can imagine, it's moved from prevention to currently a lot of conversation about the vaccine. But I do want to say Jayda's story reminded me of where I started with COVID. So my first, we call it a redeployment because I work for the government, but like my first shift in working into COVID was in the very beginning of the pandemic. And if you all remember, the sort of epicenter of COVID here in King County started at the Life Care Center and started at a facility for mainly for elders and for folks also having rehabilitation. And my first assignment on COVID was actually working with those families and being able to help support them getting answers in about COVID and about what was happening. And so it was listening to Jayda's story, I was so happy to hear her survival. And it definitely brought me back to the intensity of how intense COVID can be. And I think one of the things I've seen is I feel like people have sort of, we're used to COVID now. And so everyone's really worried about these, you know, symptoms from the vaccine, but they forget Jayda's story. And they forget the long-term effects that people have from COVID. So that was really important, I think, for people to hear, and especially right now at this stage in COVID. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Becky, for sharing this. Yes, you've just taken us back on memory lane. It all started here in Washington State, and moreover in King County, right?
Yeah.
The first place was in King County.
Yeah, in Kirkland. The big epicenter here was in Kirkland, and so we were sort of leading everything.
Yes, and it was So Becky, I have a question. Because you were one of the first people that perhaps approached this. At that time, there was not much information about this, and there was we didn't know what was happening. We were not sure. How did you navigate through that time, like in the beginning? What did you do? What was going through in your mind?
Yeah. I think the hard part has been about, like, in the beginning, we didn't know a lot. And honestly, I grew up, even though I'm, extremely young, I grew up during the AIDS epidemic, and, I was a teenager in the 80s. And being in this pandemic reminded me of that fear and that misinformation and disinformation and discrimination that was happening then. And so I think one of the hard parts has been that, we didn't know a lot, and this was brand new in the beginning of COVID. And one of the things that unfortunately that did was, I think a lot of people, as information changed, as we learned and as we knew more, things changed. And people, instead of being excited to be learning and knowing, it's sort of bred distrust. You know, like, why are you telling us to wear masks now? You told us we didn't need them before. And the answer is, we know more now. We're learning, and we know a lot. And, you know, the more we learn, the more we can share correct information. And unfortunately, I feel like, you know, that disinformation campaign kind of twists that around. But also, people are afraid of the unknown. And so instead of embracing as we learn and as we find out more, it has done sort of this opposite thing of creating so much distrust and disinformation online. So for me, you know, from the very beginning, was having to share information with people. And I've always said from the beginning, you know, it's not satisfactory information because I don't know everything. But I can share what I know and what we know, and we know a lot, and I'll continue to share what we know, and hopefully that can continue to build trust. But, you know, it has kind of gone all ways.
Right. I don't think so. In either your or my lifetime, or, you know, we have seen a pandemic or event like this happen. So I believe none of us were, you know, really equipped already to navigate life through this, or to have systems in place to understand that, okay, this is what these are the things that we would do to make sure that. So we were learning as we were going, and we were making a little bit of mistakes, and we were learning from that as well, and improvising, and you know, seeing what worked and what didn't work. You know, and what worked, we were creating benchmarks and ensuring that we were following them. There's a really important point that you brought from your statement, from your message that you said. You know, and we've heard so many folks. I've worked as a COVID-19 response coordinator for almost 10, 11 months with Utopia, Washington, and, you know, we serve, you know, PI, Cutie Pies, and Pacific Islanders, and people. Actually, when it comes to COVID-19 related work, we have served people from all walks of life and from all, you know, all gender spectrum, and from every demographic. People have come and you know, we've served them with different programs. And Becky, you know, I've heard this so much, so many times with my work, and tonight I've also heard from Jayda this evening that there was a lot of information floating from many different avenues last year, and at times it became difficult to pick or choose which information would be the best, as they were not always saying the same things. How did you and your team have to deal with all this mis and disinformation around COVID-19? And how did you deliver scientific-based information to communities? So before you answer the question, and I'll come back to that question again, I just want to clarify something very important over here: the difference between misinformation and disinformation, so that, you know, our folks, our viewers out there understand what we are talking about. And I'm sure everybody knows, but for, you know, I would like to still you know, emphasize what is the difference between misinformation and disinformation. So misinformation, and, you know, Becky can also add to it. Misinformation is false information that is spread regardless of whether there is an intent to mislead. Disinformation is a deliberately misleading or biased information, manipulated narrative, or facts, something like propaganda. So that's the difference between mis and disinformation. My question, Becky, is that how did you and your team have to deal with all this mis and disinformation around COVID-19, and how were you able to deliver, you know, scientific information to communities? How, you know, there's a bigger element, I think, in your work, because it's you know, majority, I think, a focus is on education. How were you able to navigate through those difficult parts and build trust again?
Yeah. It's been really difficult. I mean, one, sorry, my dog wants to come join us. There's so much to that. So first of all, we're a government agency, and many communities, including queer and trans communities, and then, I'm not trying to section out, there's intersection in all of this, but including BIPOC communities and queer and trans communities and women and disability communities, and then the intersection of all of us, right, have so much reason, both historically and today, to not trust government and not trust medical institutions based on experiences of isms, based on experiences of trauma. So one, I'm a government employee. I'm a white government employee doing education in community and trying to also counter the vast amount of, I love how you defined misinformation, disinformation, because it's not just information, it's this vast amount of disinformation. And I've been working with a lot of communities who are not literate. And so having to really rely on social media and news for information. And so, there's so many layers to it. And I think one thing is, being respectful in the face of all of the mis and disinformation, and really wanting to acknowledge it's out there, and respect that people are hearing it, and that there's, even if the information is incorrect, the fear often behind that misinformation is valid. A fear of government, a fear of medical community, a fear of getting something injected into your body that was created in a time of mass chaos in our government. So for me, it is, trying to be extremely respectful of all the emotions behind the disinformation and misinformation, but wanting, how do people make informed consent in a time of this disinformation campaign? And I really want folks to be able to make an informed consent about getting a vaccine or preventing getting COVID at a time when they're getting bombarded with all of that wrong information. So for us, we have done, I would say, the King County, Public Health King County has done a better job. I've been there almost 20 years. We've done a better job than I've ever seen us do around equity, around making sure people have access in terms of language and in terms of services. And so I think it's all of it. It's providing all of that in respectful and I want to say sensitive, but really like in ways that is respectful to communities.
And I can second that, Becky, because I've been part of this, of the meetings and part of the team in several meetings where they included our community, and they were asking the right questions. They were very respectful, and they wanted to hear what our perspective was, what we were facing, and how they could cater for our communities in the way that would be respectful. And I think that kind of approach changed a lot of mindsets. Actually, it helped change a lot of mindsets that some people who were not sure, some people who were not trusting the government, local government, they came around and they started, because of the attitude and because of the approach that you and your team, decided. And I kudos to you and your team for stepping in, and especially last year was such a difficult time. It was there was so many things happening. 2020 is a year that will be remembered for so many different things. And it was all happening at once. It was just simultaneously happening. The racial revolution, I call it, and the COVID-19 pandemic, and then there was so many different conversations happening. There was my community, trans community, have been targeted and put on a spotlight just just for some political, gain, and to make some people look good, because they don't have a better agenda to talk about. So let's just talk about something, some marginalized community that we can target. But we are resilient people, and we are fighting, and we are all standing, and we are here. We will survive this as well. Becky, thank you so much for all the work you and your team have been doing. We have been, recipients of many of your um, efforts and resources that you brought to our community, and we want to thank you on behalf of Utopia Washington, and we want to thank you on behalf of the Pacific Islander communities. We have been able to navigate testing. And have testing, send people to get tested, or coordinate with you to get test sites in the initial stages. So Public Health King County had been really, really supportive in that aspect. Now, so last year, you mentioned about misinformation and disinformation. Last year, during one of our virtual event where we brought a medical personnel to our community member, and we wanted to link that gap and have community members ask a medical professional questions about COVID-19. And I heard personally a lot of questions that really, really startled me. I was a little bit surprised at the questions, because I searched for the person who was asking this question. They were young, university, with all the technology and all access to information. And the question that they were asking were, we've been hearing that something's like this. That we've been hearing that vaccinations are being getting ready, and the government is going to inject a chip inside our body through the vaccination. So this was a particular question, and there were many other questions like this, like a conspiracy created question, but they were coming, and so it actually gave me an indication that the information that is floating into our communities, just floating in, like flooding in, and people are absorbing any and everything without much filtering. Or the ability to question, because there's so much confusion and so much chaos going on, and there's so many things going on too at that time. So we created programs like Friday Effects, where every Friday, we launch a scientific-based information on COVID-19, and we that program saw a lot of response from communities where they started reading scientific-based information and not misinformation. So now I have a question. Now the question is pertaining to the opening of the state. What do you think about the governor's plan to reopen everything 100% on June 30th? I think we lost our guest, Becky. And we will be back with Becky. Now, please ring in your questions. If you have questions, please, put in the questions and Becky would be able to answer them for you. And if you have just joined in, please like or love, or if you're on Facebook, or share this episode with your friends and family so they can actually also watch. You never know. Oh, Becky is back. Yes, Becky.
I'm so sorry. Oh, technology.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure what you heard, but let me rephrase this question.
Okay.
Again, ask you again. Now, the question that we received from a community member is saying, what do you think about the governor's plan to reopen everything 100% on June 30th?
Well, so what I think about that is we're gonna see what happens on June 30th. So the CDC said that it's up to local, like state and county public health and government to decide what's best for their county and their state. And they made it public that folks can not wear their mask when they're in public and when they are both in public outside and public inside. And we are in a place where we still have really high numbers of COVID and really high numbers of hospitalizations. The only reason we don't have really high numbers of death is we've done a wonderful job of making sure to vaccinate our elders. And so that's really lowered our number of deaths, but we're still having extremely high numbers of COVID and hospitalization. So that's why, King County and Public Health, Seattle and King County has put out a directive strongly advising that folks continue to wear their masks when in public places. So yes, thank you. I love that you are modeling that. So yes, the hope and the goal is, according to the governor, is that things will reopen June 30th. What that looks like, we'll see on June 30th. And we really need to make sure that we get our vaccination numbers up, we get our COVID numbers down, we get our hospitalization numbers down. So that's, people keep asking me, what does that mean on June 30th? What will happen with my business? And it's so hard. My partner's a small business owner. It's so hard for businesses and for individuals, but for businesses to know where to move forward and how to move forward. But we also need to make sure that we're taking care of each other. So what do I think of the governor's, statement? I think that we're moving towards in the right direction. Our numbers have started to go down, both in terms of COVID cases and hospitalizations, but it's slow. And my hope is that, and also our vaccination rate has slowed a little bit. We're definitely at the place where folks who were excited about getting vaccinated are vaccinated for the most part. And now we are in a place where a lot of folks are in a wait and see, or they're hesitant, or they're distrustful. And so, we have a lot of work to do to build trust and to get our vaccine rates up so that we can reopen on the 30th.
What are the current stats for vaccination in Washington and King County specifically?
Yeah.
Would you like to say, and what is the directive given by King County Public Health that we can go maskless if certain percentage of people get vaccinated?
Yeah, so I put I think the chat goes to everybody, and is that correct? So I put the link to it goes to you? Okay. So awesome. So the link is going to get sent to everybody. So we have a dashboard, and we just redesigned our whole dashboard to make it easier to look at and to figure out. But we have a dashboard on our website that has everything. You can look up how many people have COVID, how many folks are hospitalized, how many deaths, how many people are vaccinated. And it's a really great, and you can look it up by region, you can look it up by age. So it's good to, it's a nice place to see. Sometimes people are like, why are you, I think in the beginning when we opened a mass vaccine site in Kent, people were like, why Kent? Well, because Kent needs a mass vaccine site. It's an equity issue where folks weren't able to get the vaccine, and especially thinking about who is being impacted by the vaccine, and who can't get it. Like, so, you know, it's a great place to go and answer some questions. So currently we're almost at 60% of people who've gotten one shot, just like Jayda did today, right? The one shot. And then, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. We are at almost 73% of people who've gotten one shot, and we are at almost 60% of people who have gotten both of their shots or Johnson & Johnson. I'm not going to say they're fully vaccinated because I don't know if they've gone 2 weeks yet, but they've gotten those shots or the Johnson & Johnson shot. So that's really great. Our goal is, you know, as many people who want to be vaccinated get vaccinated, right? But in terms of the mask directive, the goal is that 70% of people throughout all ethnicity and racial groups, right? So not just 70% of people, but again, let's think about equity. 70% of people across all races and ethnicities get vaccinated. And then we know we won't have, I know there's a lot of questions about herd immunity and what is that and what does that look like? So we won't be at herd immunity. And I don't even like that term because we're humans, and I feel like that term may be dehumanizing, but we will have a lot of protection in our community, and less places for the virus to live.
Yeah. You know, I don't like the word herd immunity as well. And I also don't like the word social distancing. I think from my perspective, it's not social distancing, it's physical distancing. We are humans. We socially don't distance. We socially can interact, but physically distance. So yeah. Becky, I have a personal question for you.
Okay.
You obviously have been fully vaccinated, and so have I. Now, when you go out shopping, and if there is a store that allows you to go maskless, what would you do?
So I'm going to tell you, I went to my first restaurant in over, you know, a year and some just this week. I've been fully vaccinated for since teachers were. So again, outside of COVID. So I didn't jump the line. I waited my turn, and I thought I was going to be going back into the schools. So that's when I became fully vaccinated. I just went to my first restaurant, and I would only do a patio, and I was in the corner. I mean, I'm still really. I know that cases of people getting COVID are rare when you've been vaccinated, and I'm still cautious. You know, I know that people who are immune compromised are going to be more likely to get COVID when they're vaccinated. I want to take care of my community. I also think it's an important visual for people to see me, or anybody, not me because I work for public health, they don't know that, but people wearing a face mask. And so if I go in, and this is me, if I go into a store, I'm wearing a mask. I still don't, I'm not out in like, you know, I don't even know what normal life is, because we can argue whether or not we want to go back to the world that we were in, right? And what that looks like. You mentioned a revolution, and that revolution is here. So that is part of our life today. But yeah, I support the directive. My partner is a small business owner. You know, like, how hard is it how do you prove who's vaccinated or who's not vaccinated? And, you know, I don't want people to be discriminated against who can't get vaccinated for religious purposes or other purposes. So it's simple enough to say, wear one or don't wear one. It's harder to say, how do we prove it? And that's so difficult. So I wear a mask when I was at the restaurant, every time the server came over, I was like putting it back on, you know, and trying to like be super respectful, because I don't know where, you know, she's been working in this pandemic face to face with humans, not wearing masks for months. And I want to be respectful of her safety. So yes, I put them on in public. I wear them running. When I say running, I mean jogging very slowly, but I wear them even when I'm outside running, and that's hard. But I think it's important to, you know, to be visible with still wearing masks. I've gotten yelled at, like, you're sitting by yourself outside, why are you wearing that? And I'm like, whose business is this of yours, you know? So that's me. And I really, there are folks who've been working on the front lines in grocery stores and businesses, including my partner who works in essential business, who wasn't able to get vaccinated until recently. And some folks still aren't able to get vaccinated for different reasons. I would love for folks to be wearing masks and protecting them. So that's me. I don't know how we know who's vaccinated and who's not in public, and I don't want people to be scared of me. And that's part of it. If I'm not wearing a mask, are they going to be frightened of me because they don't know?
Absolutely, and that's a really good point. And I totally agree. I feel very uncomfortable not wearing mask when I'm outside and in anywhere I'm sitting. I'm not sure if I'm going to take off the mask for a long time. I prefer wearing mask. Also, pertaining to mask wearing, do you know the data, or do you have a rough idea of was there major increase in flu-like illnesses this season?
Oh my God, did you all notice? We didn't have a flu season.
Exactly.
We had no flu season. It was so lovely. I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm gonna admit I'm a little bit of a germ phobe. I come by that naturally. So the idea of everybody washing their hands makes me so happy. But we also didn't have a flu season. That was amazing. Yeah, exactly right.
And
I'm hoping where people are going to wash their hands too continually. Like even when the masks come down, maybe they will have learned now how to actually wash their hands. Exactly.
For 20 seconds. So it must be washed for 20 seconds and must at least 20 seconds with soap and water, and make sure you're washing every corner. So, those germs, those bad viruses just wash away in water and soap. So that's how you do it. You must wash it with 20 seconds. So you wash your wrist. You make sure you do that, and wash it really properly. Don't do it quick because some germs may carry on. So you want to be careful. I have another question from our folks, and for viewers who have just joined in, I would like you to, I'd like to welcome you to our Ask a Community Worker. And today we have Becky. Becky has been a community worker, and she has done, a lot of work around COVID-19 since the pandemic started. Here in King County is where, in Kirkland is where the first case was, how can I say, first case was recorded in the whole of America, actually. So Becky has been a pioneer in this work. All right. So I have a question, Becky. Has there been any deaths due to COVID vaccine reported in county or Washington State in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have not. So we have not had any deaths related to COVID vaccine, period. And I know that people are going to be very surprised to hear that, because you saw on social, you heard here, there was this doctor who said, so there have been folks with allergic reactions. None of them have died. There were 2 folks who had blood clots after getting a vaccine. And the reason that those 2 folks died is that they were given the wrong medication for their blood clot. So it's extremely rare to have such a severe reaction, extremely rare. 15 cases in the US out of almost 9 million doses of Johnson & Johnson given. So really rare. And the reason the pause happened with Johnson & Johnson is, one, to make sure it wasn't more widespread, but also to make sure doctors knew how to treat it, because they were treating it the way they treat typical blood clots, and that wasn't how to treat it. So we have not had any deaths due to COVID-19. And then, as you saw with that pause, sorry, I'm sorry. Thank you. Due to COVID-19, they're gonna be like, that girl, she was there. Yes, due to the COVID-19 vaccine, and it's so hard, the misinformation that is out there. And that, yes, people do have allergic responses. It's super rare. The way that I like to think about it is if you've heard it on the news, it was probably an exception, right? It's probably, like, we have to do a lot of thinking about where we're getting our information and what we're getting. And I'm not saying that these side effects aren't real and they don't happen, or these symptoms don't happen. It's super rare.
Now, just retaining to this question, I have another question for you, Becky. For those who not sure about the Pfizer or Moderna or the Johnson and Johnson, the three FDA-approved vaccines right now for emergency use. Now, maybe there is a little less information about these vaccines and what they are. Would you be able to briefly tell our viewers the difference, or what is the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the technology, the method, or what is unique about it in the Johnson and Johnson?
Yeah. So 3 vaccines allowed in the U.S. for that emergency use, all super effective. Again, lots of mis and disinformation online, all super effective, all super safe. The Moderna and Pfizer are a new technology for vaccine, but they're not new technology. This is technology that we know in the body, has been used in treatments in the body for over a decade, and has been around for over 3 decades. And then there's the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So the Moderna and Pfizer are called mRNA, or messenger RNA. Johnson & Johnson, you may have heard it called Janssen, that's like the brand name, is a vector viral vaccine, or viral vector vaccine. I hear it often interchanged. And that's the one that's sort of the more, like, the one that you're used to. Once they're in the body, they both actually do the same thing. When they get into the body, they actually create proteins on your cell that mimic what COVID-19 looked like. And when I say mimic what it looks like, COVID-19 actually has a little spike. And so these vaccines, even though they're different technology, when they get in the body, they do the same thing. They create this spike on your cell, which, by the way, does not change your DNA. None of these vaccines can actually penetrate your cell. All they can do is create this protein spike on your cell. And then your body it basically trains your body to recognize COVID-19 before you ever get it. And so the messenger RNA is messenger RNA technology, and the Johnson & Johnson technology is it basically uses like a common cold cell. None of them actually have live virus or COVID material that can give you COVID. And, one of the things I want to say is, a lot of folks have been really skeptical of the messenger RNA because it's new to them. They haven't heard of it. And for me, I worked in HIV treatment here in Seattle in the late 90s. I lost a lot of friends and colleagues and clients to AIDS. Back in the late 90s, we thought we were about 10 years away from having an HIV vaccine, and we still don't have one. I am super excited that we have new technology and they've been developing this for years. This just was the opportunity to have one. But I'm super excited about where this can take us with vaccines. So the other difference between them is Moderna and Pfizer are 2 shots. Johnson & Johnson is 1 shot. And so I've been working with a lot of folks that now that things are reopening are going to other countries and visiting family, but they don't have time to do the 2 shots. And I'm like, so that might be like, these are the things to think about now that we have a lot of vaccine and you do get to make a choice on what vaccine you want. I mean, in the beginning, it was like, if you're offered a vaccine, we have such limited vaccine, I would hate for someone to turn down one. Now, maybe for somebody a 1-shot dose is so much easier to do because of A, B, and C in their life. And for other folks, maybe they're excited about the mRNA and they want that one, right? So the other thing, there's one more thing I want to say about the messenger RNA technology is that you've heard a lot probably about how it needs to be kept very cold. We need these special temperatures. And so with that, I want folks to know that that messenger RNA molecule goes into the body, creates a protein on the cell, and disintegrates. Because it has to be kept so cold, our bodies aren't that cold. So it doesn't stay, you know, people again have this tracking fear or this fear that's going to penetrate your cell. So it can't penetrate your cell. It also disintegrates and leaves your body the same way food and drinks do. So it doesn't stay in our body. It's not going to be used for tracking. I hope I answered that.
I think it's doing really well. Will it be right to say that the mRNA vaccine is like a memory of the virus, which stirs up your immune system to create antibodies?
Yeah, it creates like a blueprint. I know I'm always trying to figure out how to explain it in a way that is not like too technical, because it is like here's a messenger RNA molecule that gets into your body and it creates like a blueprint. But yeah, I mean that they're both training your body to recognize COVID, but that one is almost like a blueprint of the, yes, without using COVID-19 viral material.
Which one did you get, Becky?
I got whichever one I showed up that day and they gave me, just so you know. But I did, I didn't even know what I was getting until I got there. I actually made an assumption based on where it was, because they were part of one of the trials where I was going. So I assumed I was getting that one. And I showed up and I was like, oh, I'm getting Pfizer. So I didn't ask. I was just like, I can go hug my mom again one day, who's immune compromised, and my goddaughter, right? It was a very emotional experience for me. And I also was like waiting. And so like day ago, I went and I was like, oh, I'm getting Pfizer. Here we go. Arm, right? Actually, here's this arm, because I knew it was gonna be a little sore, and I'm right-handed, so I gave them my left arm. So yeah, I got the Pfizer vaccine, and the Pfizer is one shot. You wait 3 weeks, and then you get your second shot. So I was also glad it was only 3 weeks instead of 4 weeks, just because I was ready to be vaccinated.
Yeah, I remember when I got my second shot, I felt after a couple of days, I felt a feeling of hope again.
Yeah.
I felt, that there is hope. There is going to be, we're going to come out of it. When I was fully vaccinated, I felt that. Becky, I have got a few questions from community. For those folks who are joining us from Fiji, New Zealand, Canada, we'd like to say thank you very much for tuning in for Ask a Community and sending your questions. Rebecca from Fiji and Chanel from Canada, who's our very loyal fan of this show. Thank you for tuning with us this evening. I have another question. Now, actually, there was a very important question that I wanted to ask you. It's here. I found it. What is the best way to approach someone who is politically driven to not take the vaccine?
Yeah, so I actually just developed a training around, informed consent and behavior change and vaccine, and because we're in this time where, how do we help support people if they want to get vaccinated to move? So I do behavior change, I do sexual health, right? So how do we increase condom use, right? How do we do harm reduction? How, all this stuff. So thinking about vaccine, I think that's a really good question, because people get to make whatever decision they want, right? They can decide to get the vaccine. They can decide not to get the vaccine. My hope is that they're making decisions based on correct information, because again, unfortunately, that multiple disinformation campaigns is really impacting people. And I do think coming at it from a place of kindness and empathy goes a long way. I mean, I have been in calls where people are, I can't believe you believe that. I can't, really, you believe that? I mean, the first thing someone's going to do is shut down.
Right.
You know, and I think it's really valid to not trust government, not trust medical communities. Some people don't trust based on real lived experience of oppression. Some people don't trust based on a perceived oppression that they may not actually have, right? So there's all of that happening. And regardless, I believe in approaching with empathy and kindness and understanding. And, you know, and asking, you know, open-ended questions. So tell me more about that, right? And thinking about, you know, some people are really motivated to get vaccinated because they want to take care of their elders in their community. Some people are really motivated to get vaccinated because they have FOMO. They're like watching everybody else go and do things and they want to do it. So also thinking about how to, you know, if somebody's like, oh, I don't want to do this thing, but God, I really want to do this other, I want to be able to go out. Like there's something that we can sort of talk to, right? So tell me more about that. Like tell me what you've heard. Oh, I've heard that this was created as a means to commit genocide against A, B, and C. Like, great, let's talk about that. Like I have absolutely heard that as well. And that's a real fear, right? It's not like the government hasn't done that before. And I know a little bit of information about that. Can I share it with you? Right. So those are the ways like that I approach it, is really understanding and empathy. When it's one-on-one, I ask permission to share. If it's a group setting, I do group education. If it's a group setting and someone puts out misinformation, I'm going to correct it. I don't want the rest of the group believing it. But if it's a one-on-one, if it's a family member, right, if it's your grandma you're talking to, I use these same strategies. Like, tell me more about that. Where have you heard that? You know, like, oh yeah, I've heard that as well. You know, that's misinformation. Can I share some more with you? And I named it as misinformation. I planted a little seed. If they say no, they get that right. But if they say it in front of others, I'm correcting it, because I don't want them all to think the same thing too. Absolutely. But empathy and love and kindness will take us really far.
I think the key words that you brought out is empathy and kindness, and that's what we need in our society today. Empathy and kindness, you know, not to call out people who don't want to get vaccinated, but to try to understand why they don't want to get vaccinated, and change the attitude, and you know, things will change. Maybe listen to them and understand what's happening, and what are the reasons. And show empathy and help them to navigate the truth and the facts. So I think, Becky, you said it really, really well. Empathy and kindness is the key to changing our society.
Even when it's your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, your grandma, whoever it is, when you're like, I can't believe that is so dumb, you're done. Like they're not gonna hear you. So.
Becky, you know, I enjoyed having this conversation with you, and I want to continue for the next hour because this is so engaging, and also at the same time, it's so informative. Like, we're learning so much, and thank you so much for this time. But I want to be respectful of your time as well. And, you know, I would ask you a last question. And you know, this question is also very important, and it's coming from our community. One of our community members is asking, what does the King County have in place for future pandemics in similar breakouts?
Yeah, you know, I will say, again, I've been at the county for almost 20 years in August, and I have been part of many different epidemic responses. This is the first, obviously, one of this kind. I think we have a lot to learn from it, and that is an important piece. So, you know, many of us are working a lot of hours, and at the end of it, we are going to need a lot of debriefing, right? And a lot of what do we do well and what do we need to learn. And I think that one of the things that we've learned really well is to listen to community, to engage community differently than we ever have, to have better equity and access, and that is around language access, disability access, both in terms of set up in terms of engagement, in terms of bringing to community instead of expecting community to come to us. So I think that we have fed our community and housed our community when they've had COVID in a way that we never have. And my hope is that we learn to do that without COVID. I mean, our communities need food and housing, and I mean, I live in the heart of Seattle, and the desperation I see is devastating. So my, not just hope, but what I hear in conversations and in all of the work we're doing are all the lessons learned and how to continue this work forward. I like to say COVID and beyond, you know, so all of this work that we've been doing, we're bringing forward to COVID and beyond. And then all of the things we didn't do well, we're learning. So, you know, just one example is we are going to, well, two examples. We have a community navigator team who are trusted community members, including folks at Utopia who work with us and bring us in. Like, it's not just like, we're going to tell you what to do to bring community. It is specifically around bringing information to us, telling us when things are not going well, telling us where things need to be fixed and problems and how, you know, and we're going to continue that COVID and beyond. And the same thing with our language access. So I think that we are not just going to be able to do pandemics better, but we're going to be able to do healthcare and support ending inequities in healthcare better. So I hope that answered the question, but we now know how to stand up housing and stand up mass testing sites and mass vaccine sites that can do 300,000 vaccines a week in King County. We've never done that. That's immense. So we have learned a lot, and we're going to continue to bring it forward. And the other thing I will say is, you know, again, I've worked at the county for 20 years. The program I'm in, we had 9 clinics when I started. We have 4 now. The value that others have for public health has not been high. And I think the pandemic has also taught the community the need for public health and the actual work. I don't know that maybe we just haven't always done a great job of sharing what we do. Like, we do amazing work, but we have to let people know that. And I also, you know, I think people often take it for granted it's going to be there. And unfortunately, it's not. Like, we have, yeah. So I hope that on top of it, people understand the value and the need for public health and all of the places that we intersect with community. So that's my hope.
Becky, I thank you so much for that answer, but I lied. Actually, that wasn't the last question.
I saw one more in there, and I was hoping I was going to get it.
No, I when you were saying, you know, when you're speaking, I thought of something else actually.
Oh, okay.
And question, and this is actually the last question, official last question, I promise. Becky, you know, looking through your lens, working with COVID-19 from the initial stage till now. What is one thing that, when you look back at 2020 and the whole pandemic, what is one thing that you think we could have done differently? And what is one thing that when you think about it, it makes you feel proud?
Well, first of all, I work for the government, so I can't give political commentary on any of our political systems federally or any of that. So what I would say to you personally when we hang out after this, in terms of in my work world, you know, yes. I would say one of the things that I would say that's actually the same thing, that we have, it's the same places we faltered that we've done better, that we have not. So one of the places I have fought really hard for providing equity work during, and there's so many places, right? And there's so much. And one of the things that I don't think we were doing very well in the beginning of the pandemic was around disability inclusion and access. And I think we have learned, the county, we have learned how to do it better. We're not best, we're not perfect, we're not, but we are learning, we are listening, and we are doing it better than we ever have. And I think, the county, when you look at who we serve, who we are here to serve in the county, so many of the communities, I don't know how to say this. When folks aren't coming through our door, it's because we're doing something. Like when folks who should be in our doors are not, it's because we're doing something wrong. And I think we've done a better job we've faltered a lot. And so disability inclusion and access has been one of the places. And we're learning a lot and doing astronomically better. And we still have a ways to go. So it's the same of like what we did wrong, and also what I'm so proud of. I'm so proud of the equity work that we've been doing, and that's one place where I've been able to help advocate and have us do better.
Thank you, and I totally agree that your decision to include people from all different walks of life was the best strategy, and I think it's working well. And there has been trust that has been built. So thank you so much, Becky. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you. And I hope that, we'd be able to bring you back. And it was such an honor to speak with you and speak, and see things through your lens.
Thank you. And then when you have me back, again, COVID and beyond, I'm a sexual health educator.
Absolutely.
We can talk about some other things too. I'm very multi-talented here.
Now, since we've got a hold of you, we're not going to let you go.
I love it.
You don't know us. We are like, we'll hold on to you very tight now.
I'm in. I'm holding back.
Thank
and I'm
you.
vaccinated.
You've enriched us with so much information, such great information, and you've clarified so many, questions. Thank you so much, and I'm sure you have a beautiful dinner or something waiting for you.
It will happen. Dinner. I used to love dinner. Then COVID happened, and now I'm like, oh God, peanut butter and jelly and call it a night. Yeah. But somebody did ask to see my dog, though.
Yeah.
I did see that. So on our exit out, I'm just going to show.
Absolutely. I want to see as well.
Oh, it's not. My 15-year-old dog who can't hear me right now.
Oh, it's pretty cute.
Oh, well, he's 15.
You're a proud dog mama.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for having me and being such an amazing hostess. I really appreciate you and all of the work you all have always done, Nonprofit of the Year, and all of the work you continue to do. So thank you so much.
The pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much, Becky. And we'll see you next month. Once again, we may have Becky again for Ask a Community Worker. So get your questions ready, folks. Don't forget to like, love, and subscribe and share. Please share with your folks on your page, on wherever you want to. Maybe somebody will be, enriched with this information tonight. Until we see you again, take care. Have lots of fun next Monday. It's Memorial Day, but be safe. Remember what you have to do in King County. You have to still wear a mask. Okay? Please do wear a mask. Good night, and I wish you all a very, very fun summer holidays. See you next month.
Bye. Thank you.